For 50 years, Opal Nadine saved every penny, through cold nights, aching hands, and empty kitchen tables. All she wanted was one quiet dream, a silver Lexus, the kind her late husband once promised they'd drive together. But when she finally walked into the dealership with cash in her purse and hope in her heart, they didn't see a customer. They saw someone to laugh at. What happened next? No one saw coming. Not the staff, not the manager, not even Opal herself. Because the woman they kicked out wasn't just anyone. She was the storm they never expected. Before we dive in, I've got to ask, do you usually watch these with coffee, snacks, or while doing chores? I'm curious. Drop your answer in the comments. This story takes a sharp turn you won't see coming. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a twist. Opal Nadine stood before the mirror, smoothing the wrinkles from her simple blouse. Today was special. After 53 years of putting others first, she was finally doing something just for herself. "Walter, I think I'm finally ready," she whispered to the photo of her late husband in his military uniform. His smile had frozen in time the day before he left for Vietnam in 1970, never to return. Opal had raised their 5 children alone, working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. She'd put each child through college, watched them succeed, and turned down their offers of financial help. "Your success is my reward," she always said. But today was different. The modest insurance money she'd saved all these years, plus her careful budgeting, had finally added up to enough for her dream, a silver Lexus ES, like the one Walter had pointed out in a magazine just before he deployed. "Today's the day," Opal said, picking up her handbag. At 73, her steps were slower, but her mind remained sharp. She'd researched everything about the car, safety ratings, maintenance costs, depreciation rates. The Highland Motors dealership across town had exactly what she wanted. The bus dropped her 2 blocks from the gleaming dealership. As she approached the wall of glass and steel, Opal felt a flutter of excitement. Through the windows, she could see rows of shining luxury vehicles under bright lights. A young white couple emerged from the entrance, keys dangling, faces bright with joy. A salesman in a tailored suit walked them to their new purchase, arm extended in welcome. Opal smiled. Soon that would be her. She reached for the door, noticing how the same salesman glanced her way, then quickly turned to speak to a colleague. Strange. But Opal continued inside, her sensible shoes squeaking slightly against the polished floor. The cool air inside smelled of leather and coffee. At least 10 employees moved about the showroom, but not one approached her. Opal stood quietly, waiting to be acknowledged. A tall woman in a navy blazer walked briskly past, clipboard in hand, not even glancing Opal's way. 5 minutes passed. Opal's excitement began to fade. She watched as 2 salesmen greeted a middle-aged white man who'd entered after her, rushing to offer him coffee. Determined, Opal approached the reception desk where a young woman was typing. "Excuse me, I'm interested in the silver Lexus ES on your website." The receptionist looked up, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Someone will be with you, eventually." Eventually never came. Opal waited patiently for 23 minutes. She counted each one, watching salespeople deliberately avoid eye contact. When the woman in the navy blazer, clearly a manager from how others deferred to her, crossed the showroom floor again, Opal stepped forward with determined dignity. "Excuse me, ma'am. I've been waiting to speak with someone about purchasing a car." The manager stopped, her eyes narrowing as they swept over Opal's modest clothes and practical handbag. Her perfectly painted lips curved into a smile that held no warmth. "I'm sorry, but are you sure you're in the right place?" The manager's voice carried across the showroom floor. Several salesmen nearby paused their conversations. "Yes," Opal replied, standing straighter. "I'm interested in the silver Lexus ES. I've researched it extensively, and I'm prepared to make a purchase today." The manager's eyebrows arched high. She exchanged glances with a nearby salesman who smirked openly. "Look," the manager said, dropping her voice but not enough to prevent others from hearing, "Highland Motors specializes in luxury vehicles. Our financing options require excellent credit and substantial income verification. I'm prepared to pay cash," Opal responded, her voice calm despite the heat rising in her cheeks. This statement drew a muffled laugh from one of the salesmen. Another whispered something that made his colleague snicker behind his hand. The manager's patience visibly thinned. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We don't want to waste your time." She took Opal's elbow, steering her toward the door with firm pressure. Opal pulled her arm away. "I've saved for this car for years. I have the means to purchase it today. The food bank's down the street, not here." The manager snapped loudly, pointing toward the exit. "Please don't make this difficult." The showroom fell silent. Customers browsing cars turned to stare. One couple whispered, quickly looking away when Opal glanced in their direction. "I'm not looking for charity," Opal said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "I came to buy a car." "Security," the manager called to a man near the door. "Please escort this woman out. She's disturbing our customers." The security guard, a young black man who couldn't meet Opal's eyes, approached reluctantly. "This isn't right," Opal said quietly. "Life isn't right," the manager replied. "Now, please leave before we're forced to call the police." Outside, the sun felt too bright, exposing the shame burning across Opal's face. She'd faced discrimination before, but this public humiliation cut deep. Her hand clutched her purse containing the bank draft for $45,000. Money saved penny by penny for 5 decades. As she walked away, she heard laughter from the entrance. The manager was sharing some joke with the salesman, all of them watching her retreat. Opal didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she reached for her phone. Opal's fingers trembled as she dialed, not from age, but from the tight knot of anger and hurt locked behind her sternum. She sat in the bus shelter across from Highland Motors, her dignity wrapped around her like armor. The phone rang 3 times before a deep voice answered. "Mom? Everything okay?" "Marcus," she said, keeping her voice level. "I need to ask you something." "Anything," her youngest son replied immediately. Even through the phone, his concern was palpable. Opal hesitated. She'd raised her children to stand on their own feet, and she'd always done the same. For 53 years since Walter's flag-draped coffin arrived home, she'd never asked for help. Not when the roof leaked. Not when the medical bills piled up. Not even when Marcus had become wildly successful and repeatedly offered to buy her a house, a car, anything she wanted. "Mom," Marcus prompted. "What's wrong?" The memory flashed, 20-year-old Marcus sitting at their kitchen table, scholarship acceptance letter in hand, tears tracking down his cheeks as he promised her, "One day, I'll make sure nobody ever disrespects you again." "I was just wondering," Opal began carefully, "if you still have connections at the Attorney General's office?" "Pause. I do." "Why?" Opal watched as the manager, who'd humiliated her, strutted past the dealership windows, laughing with a salesman. "I believe I've just experienced discrimination at Highland Motors dealership." Marcus's voice changed, steel beneath silk. "Tell me everything." She did, each detail precise as a knife cut. The waiting, the whispering, the public humiliation. "I have the money, Marcus. I've saved for decades. But they took one look at me and decided." "I understand," Marcus said, his voice controlled, but she knew her son. Rage simmered beneath that control. "I'll handle this." "No scenes," Opal insisted. "No revenge. Just justice." "Of course," Marcus replied too smoothly. "What exactly would you like to see happen?" Opal considered this. "I want them to learn, not just be punished. People don't change from punishment alone." "I've got some ideas," Marcus said, "but I need to make a few calls." "Marcus," Opal said firmly, "remember what I taught you. Even when fighting wrongs, maintain your own dignity," he finished. "I remember, Mom. Trust me." After they hung up, Opal remained seated, watching the dealership. The young security guard who'd escorted her out appeared in the doorway, looking troubled. Their eyes met across the street. He quickly looked away, shame evident even at this distance. Opal nodded to herself. She'd spent her life turning the other cheek, choosing peace over confrontation. But some wrongs needed to be answered, not just for herself, but for everyone who might come after her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, "Tomorrow morning. Be ready at 9 a.m. Dawn broke over the city as Opal sat at her kitchen table, sipping tea. Sleep had come in fitful bursts, interrupted by memories of humiliation at Highland Motors. But morning brought resolve rather than bitterness. Her doorbell rang precisely at 8:30 a.m. Outside stood a tall woman in a crisp charcoal suit. "Mrs. Nadine, I'm Aisha Johnson from the State Attorney General's Civil Rights Division." Opal blinked in surprise. That was fast. Aisha smiled. "Your son has considerable influence. May I come in?" Over the next 20 minutes, Aisha explained the situation. "We've been building a case against Highland Motors for months. Multiple complaints of discrimination, but victims are usually reluctant to go on record. And you want me to?" Opal asked. "Your case might be exactly what we need. But there's more." Aisha hesitated. "Your son has coordinated with several parties. This could become high profile." Opal considered this. "I didn't want a circus." "It won't be," Aisha assured her. "But justice sometimes needs witnesses." At Highland Motors, the morning began like any other. Claire Whitley, the manager who'd ejected Opal, arrived early, briefing her sales team about a VIP potential buyer rumored to be visiting today. "This could be our biggest sale of the quarter," she emphasized. Apparently, the tech billionaire Marcus Nadine is looking for vehicles for his corporate fleet. The name meant nothing to her. Just another rich man to flatter. "What about yesterday's bag lady?" one salesman joked. "Maybe she'll come back with her millions." Claire laughed. "God, could you imagine? I'd like to buy your most expensive car with these food stamps." Her impression drew cruel laughter. Across the room, Jamal Washington, the young black security guard, watched silently. Yesterday's incident had left him sleepless, ashamed of his participation. He'd considered quitting, but his grandmother's medical bills made that impossible. His phone buzzed with a text, "Stay at your post today." Change is coming. The message came from an unknown number, but somehow Jamal felt a weight lift from his shoulders. At 9:45 a.m., Richard Kessler, the dealership owner, arrived unexpectedly. "Claire, is everything ready for the VIP? I hear he could order up to 30 vehicles." "Absolutely," Claire assured him, straightening her blazer. "The sales team is prepped, and I'll personally handle." She stopped mid-sentence, her attention caught by movement outside. Through the glass walls, a procession of vehicles appeared. First came 2 police motorcycles, then 3 black SUVs with government plates, followed by a sleek limousine. Behind them, 2 more SUVs and another police motorcycle. The showroom fell silent. Claire smoothed her hair, plastered on her most winning smile, and whispered to Richard, "This is bigger than we thought." Outside, the motorcade stopped with military precision. Men in suits emerged from the SUVs, scanning the area with the unmistakable vigilance of security personnel. Then the limousine door opened. The showroom of Highland Motors froze in anticipation. Claire Whitley's professional smile stretched wide as she positioned herself front and center, ready to greet what must surely be an extraordinarily important client. Richard Kessler, the owner, muttered, "Government plates. This could be federal contracts. Millions." From the limousine emerged a tall black man in an impeccably tailored suit. His presence commanded attention, not from flashiness, but from the quiet assurance of someone accustomed to power. 2 aides flanked him, carrying tablets and looking efficiently serious. Claire's smile faltered momentarily before returning, brighter and more determined. She strode forward as the glass doors opened automatically. "Welcome to Highland Motors. I'm Claire Whitley, General Manager." "It's an absolute honor to." The man cut her off with a raised hand. "I'm looking for Claire Whitley." Confusion flickered across her face. "I'm Claire Whitley." "Excellent." He didn't offer his name or his hand. "Yesterday at approximately 2:15 p.m., you instructed an elderly black woman named Opal Nadine to leave these premises. You directed her to, quote, the food bank down the street, unquote. Is this correct?" The color drained from Claire's face. Behind her, whispers erupted among the sales staff. Richard Kessler stepped forward, his businessman's instinct sensing danger. "I'm Richard Kessler, the owner. Perhaps there's been some misunderstanding." The man finally extended his hand to Kessler. Marcus Nadine, CEO of Horizon Technologies. Recognition dawned on Kessler's face. Marcus Nadine, the tech billionaire whose company supplied security systems to government agencies and whose personal worth exceeded $12 billion. Kessler's voice shifted to damage control mode. Mr. Nadine, we're honored by your visit. Whatever concern you have, I'm sure we can address it immediately. Marcus's expression remained impassive. The woman your manager humiliated yesterday was my mother. The showroom went silent. Every eye turned to Claire, who stood frozen, her career visibly crumbling before her. I had no idea, she stammered. She didn't look like. Like what? Marcus asked softly, dangerously. Like someone who could afford your cars. Like someone worthy of basic human dignity. Outside, 2 more black SUVs pulled up. From one emerged Aisha Johnson from the Attorney General's office, flanked by 2 assistants carrying legal briefcases. From the other stepped a woman in a press badge, accompanied by a photographer. Claire saw them approaching through the glass walls, and panic flashed across her face. Mr. Nadine, please, this was a misunderstanding. Your mother didn't indicate she was actually interested in purchasing. My mother shouldn't have to prove her worth to receive basic respect, Marcus interrupted. But since you measure human value in dollars, perhaps this will interest you. He nodded to an aide, who opened a tablet displaying Highland Motor sales records. Your dealership has a pattern of discriminatory practices, Marcus continued. Minority customers receive higher interest rates. Black customers wait an average of 40 minutes for assistance compared to 8 minutes for white customers. Your own security cameras documented 27 instances last month alone of non-white customers being ignored or misdirected. Richard Kessler's face had grown ashen. How did you access our internal? I provide cybersecurity for the Department of Defense, Mr. Kessler. Your password-protected sales database wasn't exactly Fort Knox. The doors opened again, and Aisha Johnson entered, legal papers in hand. Mr. Kessler, Ms. Whitley, she announced formally. I'm serving notice of investigation into discriminatory practices at Highland Motors on behalf of the State Attorney General's office. But all eyes had shifted to the final figure entering the showroom. Opal Nadine walked in with quiet dignity, her simple clothes and sensible shoes unchanged from yesterday. The only difference was the straight set of her shoulders and the calm assurance in her eyes. The reckoning had arrived. Claire Whitley instinctively stepped backward as Opal Nadine approached. Behind Opal came not just Marcus and the government officials, but 3 other well-dressed black men and women, Opal's other children, all professionals, all wearing expressions of contained fury. Mrs. Nadine, Richard Kessler began, desperation straining his voice. I want to personally apologize for any misunderstanding yesterday. Highland Motors prides itself on customer service, and clearly we failed you. Failed is an interesting word choice, Opal replied, her voice strong and clear. When you fail a test, you get another chance. When you fail a customer, you lose business. But when you fail basic human decency, you reveal character. Claire's face flushed red. Mrs. Nadine, this is being blown completely out of proportion. I simply thought that I was homeless. Opal finished for her. Because I'm black? Or old? Or don't wear designer clothes? The showroom had grown crowded. Customers who'd been browsing cars stood watching. Employees hovered anxiously. Through the glass walls, more people gathered outside, some filming with phones. Marcus stepped forward, placing a protective hand on his mother's shoulder. We have 2 options for how this proceeds. He nodded to Aisha Johnson, who opened her briefcase. Option 1, the Attorney General's office files formal charges of discrimination. Given the evidence we've accumulated, Highland Motors faces significant fines, potential loss of business license, and a very public legal battle. Richard Kessler swallowed hard. And option 2, Opal spoke up. Education. Her simple answer confused everyone. Marcus smiled and continued. My mother believes people can learn from their mistakes. She proposes a different resolution. He signaled to an aide, who handed over a document. Highland Motors will implement a comprehensive anti-discrimination training program for all employees. You'll hire a diversity officer with actual authority. You'll establish transparent pricing policies to eliminate discriminatory markup practices. And you'll create a scholarship program for minority youth interested in automotive careers. Claire scoffed. This is extortion. This is accountability, Marcus countered. And far more merciful than you deserve. Jamal, the security guard who had escorted Opal out yesterday, stepped forward unexpectedly. Mrs. Nadine, I want to apologize for my part in what happened. I needed this job, but I shouldn't have. Young man, Opal interrupted gently. Sometimes we find ourselves participating in wrong things because we feel trapped. I understand that. She turned back to Richard Kessler. I came here yesterday to buy a car with cash I saved for 50 years. Instead, I was humiliated. Today, I'm offering you something more valuable, a chance to do better. Richard Kessler looked at the legal papers, then at the growing crowd outside. His business hung in the balance. We accept your terms. Claire Whitley's outrage exploded. You can't be serious. We haven't done anything legally wrong. This is just one old woman's word against. You're fired. Kessler cut her off flatly. Clean out your desk immediately. Claire's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. Marcus nodded to the security personnel, who moved to escort her from the showroom floor. As Claire was led away, Opal called after her. The unemployment office is down on 3rd Street. Not here. The echo of her own cruel words returning to her made Claire stumble. Her face crumpled as the reality of her situation crashed down. Opal felt no joy in the woman's distress, only a weary sadness that such lessons needed teaching at all. As Claire Whitley was escorted to clear out her desk, the showroom remained in stunned silence. Salespeople who had laughed at Opal yesterday now stare at their shoes, mortification coloring their faces. The power dynamic had shifted so dramatically that the air itself felt changed. Richard Kessler, fighting to salvage what he could, turned to Marcus with a desperate salesman's smile. Mr. Nadine, now that we've addressed this unfortunate situation, perhaps we could discuss the fleet vehicles you were interested in? Marcus raised an eyebrow. I never said I was looking for fleet vehicles. That was an assumption your staff made. Kessler's smile faltered. But the motorcade, your security detail. I'm here solely because of how you treated my mother, Marcus clarified. Though I do have significant influence over government vehicle contracts, which Highland Motors will certainly never receive. Opal placed a gentle hand on her son's arm. Marcus. That single word, his name and his mother's voice, contained a universe of meaning between them. Marcus nodded, understanding her silent message to focus on correction, not punishment. Opal turned to address the assembled dealership staff. I didn't come here for revenge. I came because what happened yesterday happens to people who look like me every day, in stores, banks, restaurants, and dealerships like this one. Most don't have children with resources to make you listen. Most swallow their humiliation in silence. Her voice remained gentle, but carried throughout the showroom. I raised 5 children alone after my husband died in Vietnam. I worked cleaning houses and office buildings at night so my children could attend college. I saved for 50 years to buy one nice thing for myself. She opened her purse and removed a bank draft for $45,000. This was in my purse yesterday when your manager told me to go to a food bank. Not one person here asked what I needed or could afford. You looked at my skin and my age and decided I didn't belong. Jamal, the security guard, stepped forward again. Mrs. Nadine, I'd like to help make this right. Let me show you the car you came to see yesterday. Opal studied him for a moment. What's your name, young man? Jamal Washington, ma'am. Are you in school, Jamal? He nodded. Night classes. Business administration. Marcus exchanged glances with his mother, a silent communication passing between them. He turned to Richard Kessler. The diversity officer position we discussed. Mr. Washington would be an excellent candidate, provided he completes his degree. Kessler, eager to demonstrate compliance, nodded quickly. Of course. Aisha Johnson from the Attorney General's office approached with paperwork. Mr. Kessler, we'll need your signature on these compliance agreements. We'll be monitoring Highland Motors closely for the next 3 years. As Kessler signed the documents, Marcus gathered the dealership employees. The training program begins tomorrow. Attendance is mandatory. Those unwilling to participate should update their resumes tonight. Outside, Claire Whitley exited the back door, carrying a box of personal items. Her face streaked with tears of humiliation and rage. She passed the line of black SUVs that had shattered her career. She didn't notice Opal watching her from the showroom window. "Do you think she'll learn?" Marcus asked his mother quietly. Opal sighed. "Some people need to hit bottom before they look up. But that's not our responsibility now." She turned away from the window. "Now, about that Lexus I came to buy." The atmosphere in Highland Motors had transformed entirely. Where yesterday Opal had stood ignored and unwelcome, now she sat in a comfortable chair while staff hurried to bring her coffee, water, anything she might desire. The remaining salespeople hovered anxiously, each hoping for a chance at redemption. Richard Kessler himself brought forward the paperwork for the silver Lexus ES that had been Opal's dream for so many years. His hands trembled slightly as he placed the documents before her. "Mrs. Nadine, I've applied our highest possible discount," he said, his voice unnaturally solicitous. "And of course, we'll include our premium maintenance package at no additional cost." Opal reviewed the numbers carefully, saying nothing about the dramatic price reduction that hadn't been offered yesterday. Marcus stood behind his mother, his presence a silent reminder of consequences. "Before I sign," Opal said, looking up at Kessler, "I'd like to know what concrete changes you'll implement starting today." Kessler shifted uncomfortably. "Well, as we discussed, the training program and specific changes," Opal interrupted. "That began immediately." Jamal Washington, still officially just a security guard but standing taller now, cleared his throat. "If I may, Mrs. Nadine, I've observed patterns here for months." At Opal's encouraging nod, he continued. "First, every customer should be greeted within 2 minutes of entering, regardless of appearance. Second, the commission structure rewards salespeople who target certain preferred customers while ignoring others. Third, the financing department applies different interest rates based on zip codes, which disproportionately affects minorities." Marcus typed notes on his phone as Jamal spoke. "We'll add these to the compliance requirements." Kessler's face had grown pale. "Those financing practices are industry standard." "Then change the standard," Opal said simply. As she signed the purchase agreement, Opal remembered Walter pointing to that Lexus photo in the magazine, saying, "Someday, sweetheart, someday we'll have nice things too." She'd carried that promise through decades of struggle. Kessler handed her the keys with a forced smile. "Your vehicle is ready whenever you are, Mrs. Nadine." Outside, the silver Lexus gleamed under the showroom lights. A young salesman named Derek, who had laughed at Opal yesterday, was now tasked with explaining the vehicle's features. His hands shook as he demonstrated the navigation system. "Mrs. Nadine," he said suddenly, his voice cracking, "I'm truly sorry for my behavior yesterday. I was wrong." Opal studied him, seeing not just fear of consequences, but genuine remorse. "Thank you for that apology. Now show me how the seat memory function works." As the demonstration continued, Marcus received a phone call and stepped away. When he returned, his expression was serious. "Mom, I've just received word that Claire Whitley has contacted several news outlets claiming she's been unfairly terminated. She's portraying herself as the victim." Opal considered this, then surprised everyone. "Invite her back." "What?" Marcus looked genuinely shocked. "Invite her back here." "No. With the news cameras she's surely contacted. Let's finish this lesson properly." Marcus made the call. 20 minutes later, Claire Whitley returned to Highland Motors, followed by a local news crew she'd convinced to cover her wrongful termination story. Her triumphant expression faltered when she saw Opal waiting calmly beside her new Lexus. The confrontation she'd planned was about to become something entirely different. Claire Whitley marched through the dealership doors with the confidence of someone who believed herself the injured party. The news camera followed, capturing her determined expression. Behind the camera, a young reporter clutched a microphone, eager for the confrontation. "There," Claire declared, pointing at Opal. "That's the woman making false accusations that cost me my job." The camera swung toward Opal, who stood calmly beside her new silver Lexus. Unlike Claire's agitated state, Opal exuded tranquility. Mrs. Whitley, Opal said quietly, I believe we have unfinished business. The reporter stepped forward. I'm Gabriela Santos from Channel 7 News. Mrs. Whitley claims she was fired unjustly over a misunderstanding. Could you comment on that? Opal nodded. There was certainly a misunderstanding. Mrs. Whitley misunderstood that human dignity isn't determined by appearance or assumptions. Claire's face flushed. I was doing my job. This dealership sells luxury vehicles, and I made a judgment call based on how she was dressed. That's not discrimination, it's business. The camera captured every word. Marcus, standing nearby, made no move to intervene. This was his mother's moment. Mrs. Whitley, Opal said, Yesterday, you told me the food bank was down the street. You didn't ask if I needed help finding something. You didn't inquire about my budget. You saw an older black woman and decided I didn't belong here. That's not, Claire began. The security cameras recorded everything, Opal continued. Every word, every laugh from the salespeople. But that's not why I'm here today. She ran her hand gently along the silver Lexus's roof. I came back to buy this car. With cash I saved for 50 years. And to tell you something important. I don't need a lecture from you, Claire snapped, but her voice had lost its conviction. Not a lecture. A story, Opal replied. My husband pointed to a Lexus in a magazine before he left for Vietnam. He never came home. I raised 5 children alone, cleaning offices at night after working days as a school cafeteria worker. I put each child through college by saving pennies and nickels. The reporter had lowered her microphone, captured by Opal's quiet dignity. One of those children became successful beyond our wildest dreams, Opal continued. But I never asked for help. I wanted to buy this car myself with money I earned and saved. That was my dignity. And yesterday, you tried to take that dignity from me. Claire's eyes had grown wet, her righteous anger crumbling. The tragedy isn't that you misjudged my financial situation, Opal said. It's that you thought my worth as a human being depended on it. The showroom had fallen completely silent. Every employee, every customer stood frozen, witnessing a masterclass in powerful restraint. So what happens now? The reporter asked. Mrs. Whitley lost her job. Actions have consequences, Opal acknowledged. But redemption is always possible. She turned to Richard Kessler. This dealership will implement new policies and training. Perhaps Mrs. Whitley could benefit from that training too. Not as a manager, but as someone learning to see people rather than assumptions. Claire's mouth opened in shock. You want me to come back as, what? A trainee? As someone willing to grow, Opal corrected. That choice is yours. The camera captured Claire's face as the full weight of grace hit her, harder in many ways than punishment would have been. Marcus stepped forward finally. The changes happening here will be implemented across Highland's 12 dealerships statewide. My mother didn't want vengeance. She wanted change. Opal took the keys to her new Lexus. 50 years ago, my husband said, someday we'd have nice things. Today is that someday. As she settled into the driver's seat, she placed Walter's photo carefully on the dashboard. The engine purred to life, a sound of promise fulfilled. Through the windshield, she watched Claire Whitley standing alone as the camera crew packed up, her redemption story overshadowed by a greater narrative of dignity and perseverance. Opal drove her silver Lexus out of Highland Motors, not as a victory lap, but as a quiet affirmation that patience and principle still mattered in a world too often defined by appearances and assumptions. Behind her, the fleet of black SUVs pulled away one by one, their job complete. Justice had been served not through vengeance, but through transformation, the most powerful kind of change. Walter would have been proud. That brings the story to a close. Opal didn't raise her voice or demand revenge. She walked with grace through a moment that would break most people. What makes her unforgettable isn't just her strength, it's the way she used it. In a world quick to judge by skin, age, or clothes, she showed that real power lives in patience, in quiet courage, and in choosing to stand tall when others expect you to shrink. Would you have forgiven Claire like Opal did? Let me know what you think below. You're one of the few who made it all the way through. It means you've got great taste. Subscribe now And don't stop here. Click the next story and keep the emotion going.